Hello everyone. Today, let's see the China's ambitious multinational infrastructure project called Belt and Road Initiative. The Belt and Road Initiative, formerly known as One Belt One Road, is a global development strategy adopted by the Chinese government in 2013 involving infrastructure development and investments in nearly 138 countries and 30 international organizations across Asia, Africa, Europe, Middle East and Americas. The purpose of the project is to promote economic development and regional interconnectivity, putting China at the top of the geo-economic food chain while providing mutual benefits to participants all the way down the line. The Belt and Road Initiative is considered as a centerpiece of Xi Jinping's foreign policy. The initiative was unveiled by Xi Jinping in 2013 during his visits to Kazakhstan and Indonesia, and thereafter promoted by Premier Li Keqiang during state visits of Asia and Europe. The initiative, featured in People's Daily by 2016, was given intensive media coverage. The project, incorporated in the Constitution of People's Republic of China in 2017, has a targeted completion date of 2049. Initially, the project was termed One Belt, One Road strategy, but officials thought that the terms one and strategy could create misinterpretations about the objectives of the project. Hence, the Chinese government since 2016 opted for the name the Belt and Road Initiative. The term belt refers to the overland routes for road and rail transportation called the Silk Road Economic Belt, whereas the term road refers to the sea routes or to the 21st century maritime Silk Road. According to estimates, the entire project today affects more than 60% of the world's population and 35% of the global economy. Trade along the Silk Road could account for almost 40% of the total world trade, large part being by sea. The land route of the Silk Road also appears to remain a Nike project in terms of transport volume in the future. The objectives of the Belt and Road Initiative, as stated by the China government, are development of the renminbi as a currency of international transactions, development of the infrastructure of Asian countries, strengthening diplomatic relations while reducing dependency on US, creating new markets for Chinese products, exporting surplus industrial capacity to address China's domestic economy, and integrating commodities-rich countries more closely into the Chinese economy. In addition to physical infrastructure, China plans to build 50 economic zones. While some countries view the project critically because of the possible Chinese influence, others point to the creation of a new global growth engine by connecting and moving Asia, Europe, and Africa close together. The Belt and Road Initiative is about improving the physical infrastructure along the land corridors that roughly equate to the ancient Silk Road. The Silk Road was a network of trade routes which connected the East Asia to Southeast Asia with South Asia, Persia, the Arabian Peninsula, East Africa and Southern Europe. The Silk Road derives its name from the lucrative trade in silk carried out along its length beginning in the Han Dynasty in China. However, it was not only central to the economic but also to cultural, political and religious interactions between these regions from the 2nd century BC to the 18th century. The land corridors included in the term Belt of the Belt and Road Initiative are together called the New Silk Road, which include the New Eurasian Land Bridge, which runs from the western China to western Russia through Kazakhstan and includes the Silk Road Railway through China's Xinjiang Autonomous Region, Kazakhstan, Russia, Belarus, Poland and Germany. The second one is the China-Mongolia-Russia corridor, which runs from northern China to the Russian Far East, funded by the Sino-Russian investment. Third one is the China-Central Asia-West Asia corridor, running from western China to Turkey. The fourth one is the China-Indochina Peninsula corridor from southern China to Singapore. And the fifth one is the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, classified as closely related to the Belt and Road Initiative, called the flagship of BRI. It involves a 62 billion US dollar collection of infrastructure projects throughout Pakistan, which aims to rapidly modernize Pakistan's transportation networks, energy infrastructure, and economy. On 13th November 2016, CPEC became partly operational when Chinese cargo was transported overland to Gwadar port for onward maritime shipment to Africa and West Asia. And the sixth corridor is the Bangladesh-China-India-Myanmar Economic Corridor, proposed by China and India in May 2013 with the objective of linking the two huge markets of China and India and enhancing regional interconnectivity. Thus, in short, in BRI initiative, these six corridors fall under three belts. The North Belt would go through Central Asia and Russia to Europe. The Central Belt passes through Central and West Asia to the Persian Gulf and the Mediterranean. The South Belt runs from China to Southeast Asia, South Asia to the Indian Ocean through Pakistan. Now let's see the Sea Corridor, referred to by the term road in the Belt and Road Initiative, also called the 21st Century Maritime Silk Road. It is a complementary initiative aimed at collaboration in Southeast Asia, Oceania and Africa through several contiguous bodies of water, including the South China Sea, the South Pacific Ocean and the wider Indian Ocean area. In the Maritime Silk Road, which is already the route for more than half of all containers in the world, deep water ports are being expanded, logistical hubs are being built and new traffic routes being created in the hinterland. The Sea Corridor runs from the Chinese coast to the south via Hanoi to Jakarta, Singapore and Malaysia through the Strait of Malacca, continues via the Sri Lankan Colombo towards the southern tip of India and then to Malé, the capital of Maldives, further to the East African Mombasa and from there to Djibouti. Then it enters the Red Sea and via the Suez Canal into the Mediterranean. There, via Haifa, Istanbul and Athens, it enters the upper Adriatic region and then extends to the northern Italian hub of Trieste, where the international free port and its rail connections give it entry to the Central Europe and the North Sea. And thus, Poland, the Baltic states, Northern Europe and Central Europe are also connected to the Maritime Silk Road and linked to East Africa, India and China. In contrast to the longer East Asian traffic via Northwest Europe, this southern sea route through the Suez Canal towards the junction Trieste shortens the goods transport by at least 4 days. It has been estimated China's overall expenses over the life of BRI could reach $1.2 to $1.3 trillion by 2027. The Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, first proposed in October 2013, is a development bank dedicated to lending for infrastructure projects. In November 2014, Xi Jinping announced a $40 billion development fund which would be separate from the banks and not a part of CPEC investment. This Silk Road Fund would invest in businesses rather than lend money to the projects. Now let's have a look at the countries which have supported the Belt and Road Initiative of China. As of 2020, 138 countries have signed endorsements for the project, and these countries are spread across all continents. 38 countries in Sub-Saharan Africa, 34 in Europe and Central Asia, including 18 belonging to the European Union, 25 in East Asia and Pacific, 17 in Middle East and North Africa, 18 in Latin America and Caribbean, and 6 in Southeast Asia. This widespread support for the project is because the BRI addresses an infrastructure gap across the Asia-Pacific area, Africa, Central and Eastern Europe, and vows to accelerate the economic growth in this region. Russia has been an early partner of China, together having 150 common projects, including natural gas pipelines and the Polar Silk Road. Russia sees the Belt and Road Initiative project as an opportunity for the Eurasian Economic Union. Though Singapore does not need massive external financing for domestic infrastructure building, it has repeatedly endorsed the BRI in a quest for global relevance, making sure that China is not the single dominating nation in Asian economics. In March 2019, Italy was the first member of G7 nations to endorse Belt and Road Initiative project. Greece, Croatia and 14 other Eastern European countries are already dealing with China within the framework of the BRI. In April 2019, China engaged in an array of partnerships with 18 Arab countries called Build the Belt and Road, Share Development and Prosperity, getting their support. The African countries too see BRI as a tremendous opportunity for independence from the foreign aid and influence. On the backdrop of 138 countries endorsing the project, there has been also concerns over the project being a form of neo-colonialism due to China's practice of debt trap diplomacy as alleged by Western governments including US. The term debt trap diplomacy describes diplomacy based on debt carried out in the bilateral relations between countries with an often alleged negative intent of extracting economic or political concessions from the debtor country when it becomes unable to honor its debt. Chinese loans to governments of Malaysia, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan, Laos, Maldives, Mongolia, Montenegro to Pakistan under the CPEC project as well to Sri Lanka are alleged examples of debt trap diplomacy. The Center for Global Development's Belt and Road Tracker shows overall debt to China has soared since 2013, surpassing 20% of GDP in some countries. China's main investment in Sri Lanka was the Magampura Mahinda Rajapaksa port, mostly funded by the Chinese government and built by two Chinese companies. It claims to be the largest port in Sri Lanka after the port of Colombo and the biggest port constructed on land to date in the country. It was initially intended to be owned by the government of Sri Lanka and operated by the Sri Lanka Ports Authority. However, it incurred heavy operational losses and the Sri Lankan government was unable to service the debt to China. In a debt restructuring plan on 9 December 2017, 70% of the port was leased and port operations were handed over to China for 99 years. The deal gave the Sri Lankan government $1.4 billion that they could use to pay off the debt to China, and this led to accusations that China was practicing debt trap diplomacy with Sri Lanka. Some analysts see the project as an unsettling extension of China's rising power, and as the costs of many of the projects have skyrocketed, opposition has grown in some countries. Examples of criticisms abound. In Malaysia, Mahathir bin Mohamad, elected Prime Minister in 2018, campaigned against the overpriced BRI initiatives and cancelled $22 billion worth of BRI projects, though later announced his full support for the initiative in 2019. In Kazakhstan, mass protests against the construction of Chinese factories swept the country in 2019, driven by concerns about the costs of the projects as well as anger over the Chinese government for the treatment of Uyghurs in Xinjiang province. Meanwhile, the US shares a concern of some Asian countries like India that the Belt and Road Initiative could be a Trojan horse for China-led regional development and military expansion. Further, under the current rising tensions between US and China, US views the project primarily as a Chinese strategy to alter the geopolitical landscape in China's favor. US views India as a counterweight to a China-dominated Asia and has sought to knit together its strategic relationships in the region via the 2017 Free and Open Indo-Pacific Strategy based on 4 principles: respect for sovereignty and independence, peaceful resolution of disputes, free, fair and reciprocal trade, and adherence to international rules and norms. As far as India is concerned, the government officials in India have repeatedly objected to China's Belt and Road Initiative, specifically because they believe the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor project ignores India's essential concerns on sovereignty and territorial integrity. The sixth corridor that we had discussed earlier, that is the Bangladesh-China-India-Myanmar Economic Corridor, has been dropped from the list of covered projects due to India's refusal to participate in the Belt and Road Initiative since the second Belt and Road Forum in 2019. Beyond economic and political issues, there are ecological issues too related to the BRI project. Deforestation in areas such as Pan-Borneo Highway, which spans Malaysia, Indonesia and Brunei, causes concerns of landslides, floods and other disasters in the region. Further, greenhouse gas emissions leading to global warming and glacier melting, endangered species preservation, desertification and soil erosion as a result of overgrazing and overfarming, mining practices, water use management, Air and water pollution as a result of poorly planned infrastructure projects are some of the ongoing concerns as they relate to Central Asian nations. Moreover, the development of port infrastructure and increasing shipping associated with maritime road could impact the marine habitats, including coral reefs, mangroves, seagrass meadows, and salt marsh and sensitive species. After knowing the pros and cons of the Belt and Road Initiative project, let's see what is the status of the project as on 2020. China's BRI has been a blanket term for all China's overseas economic, political and social activities. China is still struggling to explain the initiative to the West, while the West is still unable to comprehend it in the positive sense, or it ignores to do so, alleging it does not follow their procedures or protocol. In 2018, BRI was looked upon as a Chinese model of international development, not only defying the prejudices of the West but work faster and better than planned. But as we are in 2020, experts say China is yet to offer a clear-cut definition of what constitutes a BRI project. Projects have been retroactively labeled as BRI. Further, there have been projects starting out under the brand of BRI only to withdraw it later, rebranding themselves as local projects, yielding to the opposing public sentiments. The lack of defining precisely what the BRI is has led to China losing control of its own message, and Xi Jinping has earned the skepticism of having lost his vision on the project. Further, experts say lack of transparent bidding and procurement processes under the BRI lead to escalation of costs and hence the disinterest among the member nations, leading to further discouragement of the interested European companies. To summarize, with the Belt and Road Initiative, China is gaining leverage in international markets. Although commanding will never happen because its currency is not traded in international markets and it does not have enough money in the banks to make sufficient inroads. However, though China claims that the developing nations around the globe are advancing more rapidly because of the Belt and Road Initiative, the fact is that the Asian giant has enhanced chances of improving its economic relations in places from which the US is retrenching. The takeaway point is that the Belt and Road Initiative has the potential to set the geopolitics of the globe, wherein US is becoming more isolationist while China is increasing its global presence. That's all for today. Thank you.